can, yep.
Cool. We are short one here for a quorum, but if Duncan comes, we'll have one, so. All right, we're starting our meeting, and can we do a roll call, starting with Michael?
Present.
Sue Polidura, present.
Carrie Rubenstein, present.
Dee Dee Forte.
Susan Sterry.
Don Margerson, present.
Okay. I'm going to ask Suzanne this question because we may not have to go through the capital improvement slides again, but we could maybe just to refresh our memory. But I want to thank Donald. His son, James, has come to 2 of our cleanings, and he's our headstone cleanings, and he's just a little cleaner. So, and the first time I know he was there sort of by mistake, but stayed, and the second time he came on his own. So it was really nice to see him again. He's our youngest volunteer. I told him I'd write him a letter so he can claim the time at school for
National Honor Society, maybe?
oh, whatever, but I mean, don't they have to volunteer too in the community and all of that? So maybe we should start looking, we can go through the slides real quick. It's one under there, I think it says CIP presentation. No, what? There's 3 of them there.
Yep, hang on. PowerPoint's to the left, one to the left, okay.
Oh, yep, that's the one, yeah. Oh, no, those are the broken ones. We can do
Okay.
this fine, too. We can go through the broken ones.
Well, we
real
should,
quick.
I was going to say, you want this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, side by side. Okay, I don't know what she did. All right. Does that work?
No, there's about 6 or 7 slides on that one there.
On this one?
Yeah, that's the one we used last
Okay.
time. I told Kevin I would come in and learn how to do this.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how she set them up.
Want to just share it or for?
Yeah, I'm not sure which,
You just want
not
the
sure where she put them.
pictures, right?
Yeah,
Okay. And it's that one, I think. You should just be able to. Oh, why? Oh, okay. Yeah, there
yeah,
you go.
that's fine.
Just use the right and left arrow to
Okay.
scroll through them.
Okay.
I promise
Thanks.
Kevin I'll come learn. Because I really think in this, our particular committee, pictures are worth way more than verbal descriptions, so have to put the effort in. So we talked about the straightening and repairing headstones. I got a price today. The gentleman that called from New Hampshire Monuments, because he saw the ad that, the article in the newspaper, he told me to use D2, put the pieces of the headstone back together again using fiber threads, and the latest epoxy would be $800. Does that sound unreasonable to you, Michael?
For 14.
For one headstone. One headstone.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
Yeah. So I said I would bring him before the committee and thanked him, and that was it. I do have 2 more people coming, and I know that they're not $800 a headstone. So again, that could be one of those projects that we could fundraise. But that's one of the things that we could ask for or list on our CIP. Then the next one is monuments. To get something like that fixed is probably impossible because usually they want the broken pieces, and I haven't found any broken pieces down there, but they could be in the bushes
So did
on the
this
far
just
side.
happen?
What?
Did this just happen?
No.
No, that's
No,
old
this is
data.
something. All right, and next one? I can come sit over there if you need to. This is what we're waiting for, the $20,000, and hopefully at the end of the month, we will know from the state Moose Plate grant if we get it. Then the
Is
next,
this Pleasant Street or is
no, that's Union, behind Union. That's the original seawall that's there.
Oh, I gotcha.
And that's what's remains of the tomb that was there, which could go on the list too, to rebuild the tomb. All the bricks are there on the floor of North Mill Pond.
Do you want the next one?
Yeah, please, sorry. That's the second half that never had a retaining wall or a seawall because that was all land. So that's part two of Pickering's estimate that they gave us to repair the first half. And this, we could ask for money from the Moose Plate for next year. So that's a potential because it's environmental and that's what they concentrate on. So that's sort of taken care of for now. Then the next one would be, oh, that's just the same one. That's, I was showing that has been removed, the paint. So we're at next one. This is Cotton Cemetery. Again, we're only asking people next year, volunteers, to do the 400th project where 400 headstones in the 400th. And this winter we can plan out, do we want to do it in 4 Saturdays in a row, or do we want to try to get a big group and do it in 1 Saturday or 2? But that's the commitment to the 400th that we have. So that's in the pipeline. Next. And that would not include straightening or anything. So this, I actually had 2 people this week that I spoke to. This is in Union, and this is about replacing the wrought iron, because this Union was actually designed to have all that wrought iron, and they sold within each section is a family plot, and they sold them like that. So Dee happened to be there, so a gentleman from Platinum Fence in Hampton came down. We talked to him about, it's a huge project. So right now he's going to give us estimates on what it would cost just to replace wrought iron fencing, the rods, and how many posts need to be straightened. And there are 3 or 4 granite posts that are broken. So he's going to concentrate on that and give us a price to give us a beginning point on what it would cost. And then the part, again, this will be divided up more than likely because there is wrought iron fencing and a gate and a couple gates are missing. So if we have pictures, they might even be able to be recreated, but that's down the line. So we're going to start, or he's giving us the starting point. And then I also spoke to Peter Hapney, who is the town blacksmith. Another company did this. This was a company out of Newburyport. They actually dismantled all the fencing and the gate and everything and did the new high-tech restoration, which is stripping it and then what do you call it? Electrolysis? Something like that. You bathe it and make it, highly cemented on or, attached. And then they replaced it, did that, and then actually brought everything back. That's extremely expensive, so I haven't contacted them. But Peter Hapney is very interested, and he is going to go through both cemeteries, because there's a few wrought iron plots over in North, and he's going to get back, and he's going to break it out according to various little projects. So again, by the looks of it, this will be a step project, but we'll at least have someplace to start for prices and to approach people for fundraising. Next, that's just the look to show. When this is redone, we agreed with the fence people and Peter Hapney, just cleaning the headstones just with D2, not straightening them or fixing them, putting up the rails again will make like a huge difference in this just alone. And the others would be smaller, you know, not nitpicky, but just that will really perk up the cemetery. So, next, please. Oh, and that was the gate I was talking about. And then we also have Old Hall Cemetery, which is more a lot of manual things to do in there, cutting down, cleaning up, which is certainly doable. And I don't know how much money it would even take us if we wanted to hire a tree company to come in and cut the trees and get the Boy Scouts to clean up. Which I will also say at this point, I have reached out to Daniel Webster Council, and emails have been sent to the 2 Boy Scout troops that are here in Portsmouth, detailing what we're doing, and would they be interested in helping us, and that somebody would come and give them a little presentation if the troops are interested in it. So hopefully we'll hear back from them pretty soon. So next. That's Still Hall Cemetery. That's where the 5 sea captains are buried, along with some other sailors who were lost at sea. The fence is a non-issue right now because we don't know who owns it, so won't even be part of, not for this CIP anyway. So, next. This is the Point of Graves. And did Peter Rice contact you, Suzanne, this week? He wanted to know, he thought we had left it at the last meeting that we wanted to go, I mean, he was agreeable to do this, you know, support this, that we wanted to go ahead and the report for
Do the testing.
to do the testing. But I didn't know if that meant we should just request that and ask for that amount of money and put it in the 40,000 CIP, or we were going to go with, let's make a list of all of this, of all the projects that we can put money to, and just ask like for an increase of $40,000 or $80,000, and this is what we will use it on.
Yeah, what would be the easiest way? I think having the Point of Graves separate would be easier because that's such a big one, and it's fairly well defined in the sense that we already at least have a ballpark figure. That'd be easy to do one, you know, on that sheet where you fill it out. Here's the request, and then you've got the attachment, and you know we'll kind of know what to do with that.
Right.
And because it's preliminary work to actually being able to repair the wall or decide
Right.
what's the best repair of the wall. So I would be inclined to do that one separate, and then maybe these other ones that I was just making the notes, you know, repair and straightening of headstones in Union and North, wrought iron fencing at Union, Old Hall Cemetery, cleanup, tree cutting. Those kind of items might be better grouped because we're kind of looking at this in like $50,000 roughly chunks. So, and we know that, you know, I would expect when Public Works puts its own element sheets together, initially, they're going to put in the 40, probably that was in the CIP from last year, you know, 40, 40, 40. And so that'll probably be their starting point. And then if you have coming out of this committee 2 separate requests, one specific, because you've got good numbers on the Weston and Sampson quote for the preliminary work. And maybe it's even like preliminary geotechnical plus some design seems
Right.
too much, but preliminary engineering.
Right.
Maybe just call it preliminary engineering and just put it as that element. It might be easier as we're going through
Right.
to kind of really focus on that and decide whether that gets, or the city council ultimately deciding. I'm thinking maybe two, one for the big one for Point of Graves and one for these other ones that are kind of smaller in pieces, but total up to a big number.
Right.
That make sense?
Yeah.
Can we do the gallery view so we can see who else is
Oh.
here?
What?
It's
Why is
up
it-
on the right above city, that little grid that's down.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
it's like a window.
That's the
Yeah.
gallery
Yeah.
view. Yeah,
There we go.
thanks.
Yep, nope, that's
And you
good.
can move her, I think. I mean, if you want to just
Yeah.
click and drag, I think.
Yeah, there we go. Down.
And you can make her smaller, too.
You're going to teach me a lot at the end of the day.
I was just going to say, should you be sitting over there?
Spend a lot of time on Zoom.
Oh. Well, you're going to have to give us a
Ah.
class
It's a
one
little-
day.
Okay,
Smaller.
little trick.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Thank you. Okay, so we can move on from this. There are only a couple more anyway, so.
Okay, next one?
Yeah, please.
No, it's not
And
going to
again,
go.
this would only be step one. There's two parts to the project, so. Yeah, next. Oh, and this was one, again, that we could put up there. I don't know, I mean, after seeing the gateway into Union, and you look at this, it seems like the poor cousin that it probably, eventually, not necessarily, have the poles straightened up, have the gate restored, restored, period. So, and maybe, I don't know, I guess if we would want the stones going in re-leveled or something, but definitely maybe the presentation of the gate. I don't know, it's a possibility. So,
It's hard to get in through that.
well, at least oiled anyway, so some
Everything must have
WD-40.
been much smaller those days.
And I would think easily this would be a $2,000 or $3,000 job probably. So it's not a real expensive one, but we could. I don't know. What are the rest of you?
Well, are we trying to prioritize all these?
No,
things,
we're
or-
trying to figure out what kind of money we need to.
for these?
Yeah, and how to go about asking for more additional CIP money, but also going forward, we're going to have to, or I would like to see us do some serious fundraising. So all the projects that we can put a number to, then we can adopt a project. So this would be a smaller project, and it would be nice to have it done. I mean, that's my thought process. I'm not suggesting any one over the other, just putting down in front of us, projects that are doable if the committee thinks, they're worthwhile asking people funds for. Okay, next, please. We're going to stay away from this until Michael and Peter Rice decide who owns what. So we can go on from that. And then the city does own the wall that's here and goes around the back. So there's actually two projects there. There's the repointing of the wall, and in some sections actually rebuilding the wall. And then the section where, Suzanne, I don't know if I have beyond this a picture of how, yeah, if you keep going. Yeah, and then that's where there is no wall back there. That's Michael's old playground. Yeah, and then, well, you can see how many trees there are down in the back, but it's not so much the trees. There's a lot of brush and everything down in there that needs to be cleaned out. Well, how would a fire affect the cemeteries?
Fire,
Yeah, like if a brush fire started and came up through it, would it?
that would be an improvement.
Well, no, I mean, it wouldn't affect the headstones and stuff, right? I don't think so. Even the really old ones? Like the
I can't say that it
soapstone?
would, no.
Okay.
Well, unless a tree falls, on
It is
fire
messed
falls
up.
on it, and,
Well, I know, but
but
I didn't want to assume that, so. So that's also, and again, I have no idea, again, the clearing out and everything, we might be able to get a tree company to volunteer their services, and then definitely have to find some masons who might be interested in bidding or giving us estimates on what it would cost to fix and repair the wall.
It would look nice if it was done.
The what?
It would look very nice if it was done. I don't think it's a high priority.
No, I don't. But again, the point for fundraising is to get these together and
Right.
see what.
Oh, no. I know
See
exactly where
what?
you're going.
Yeah. I didn't, yeah, so that's the list, and Suzanne so nicely just typed it all up, right?
What I was told, the tomb, or receiving tomb, George Ward negotiated with probably Bob Violet
Yeah.
for a 99-year lease to use that building for $1 a year, provided he took care of the building. I don't know if any paperwork exists.
I can search for it. We can always find out what's, in the clerk's office
We've gone back
sometimes.
in the 1940s or 50s.
Okay. Ward is what I'm looking for. George,
George B. Ward.
okay.
Yep.
Mayor Violet. I remember him. But what about the rest of the other, is that the building and the tombs?
Just the wooden structure.
Just the
If
wooden
she goes
structure?
back 3 slides, you know what it looks like.
Yeah, the green,
Yeah.
the yellow
With the green
one.
doors or?
Yeah,
Yep.
right
Oh, that
there,
one there.
yeah. So, are they still undecided between you and the city about, not you personally, but who owns that wall right there with the tombs inside of it?
The city definitely does.
Okay. All right, so we can also put that on the list to those doors. Yeah, if we go back a couple, I think. Yeah,
I don't know what's living in there, but you can see that hole in the green door that is,
and there's a pretty good gap under the metal door, too.
yeah,
So
leaks like a sieve.
we can,
There's no one in there.
yeah, we'll cost out just the facade, get it fixed.
Yep.
So we can get that cost out and put that as another project. And all the prices have to be by when? October 1st?
The citizen requests for CIP are due at the end of September. I would say even if you have a ballpark,
That's what-
I think that's really sufficient for purposes of what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Because then it can be further investigated and,
Right, and I have had some people, give me various prices, and they would be in the, people that would know, not necessarily a stranger off the street, so. Yeah, so that's our list. And why, we're called citizens because we're a committee, right?
I couldn't think of where else to put you, so I figure shoot for September 30. Do I think anyone's going to have heartburn if it's a little, a week or two later? And I don't think so, but
No,
we're
no,
just,
that's all right.
staff is trying to put its initial slides in, vet them, so we have commitments to get them to planning board at a certain point in time.
Right.
So that's why it's, there's a little bit of wiggle room, but then it goes to the next process, and to the next process, and to the next process, and ultimately the city council.
Okay, so another, did you have a question, Carrie?
no, I had hair in my face.
So that leads us to another question for you, Suzanne. Before you got here, we were just having an informal discussion about how much we should ask for this time out with the city council for the CIP. So, there were several school of thoughts, and correct me if I'm wrong. I said if we go ask for $80,000 in additional to the 40 that we're going to get, that was approved last year.
Well, keep in mind, each year is a new
Right.
There's a new opportunity for the city council to revisit. So the way your CIP works is, it may show 40 40 for this current fiscal year. They agreed to in FY, when they adopted the FY '23 budget.
Right.
And they had a plan of an additional 40, 40,
Right.
40 carry through for each year.
Okay. So we.
But you can't, you'll have to advocate first for at least the 40 that they had already planned for, because each year it's a new appropriation.
Okay.
So the question is it going to, what is the city council ultimately going to want to include? Are they going to want to include that 40 like they originally planned for? And, my experience over the years is generally it's not a going back. You tend to add to, or you move things to out years because some other priority arises. So
Right.
you're in the general fund category, which is the one that you're competing with roads and sidewalks and facilities and library. So that's, when you look at the CIP, you fall under, those types of,
The big guys.
the general, what's coming out of the general tax revenue versus water and sewer. You don't compete with that because those are enterprise funds. So you're competing, and so that's when you think about it, because that's what it is. The city council has to weigh the priorities.
So when would we have the opportunity, this list that we just created, if we went the 42,000 for the specific Point of Graves,
Yep.
then when would be the appropriate time to do a presentation like this, something like this, to show where the money would go and why it's needed?
So there are multiple opportunities for public hearing, and the first one starts at the planning board, because the planning board reviews the CIP first before
Okay.
it gets to the city council.
Okay. And so that will be coming up sometime in,
This fall. I think it's, I
October.
didn't bring the schedule with me.
But,
I think
so-
it's even December.
all right, so,
Should've
Were
brought the
any of the
schedule.
costs associated with the support from Public Works with the water truck assigned against our capital
I
budget?
looked into that, it was minimal, anyway. They only paid whatever it cost for the employee that came. So there was no, and Suzanne just shook her head that we didn't get charged.
I think we just absorbed it.
Right,
In,
because there was no, it was the cost of overtime with whoever came for the 3 or 4 hours. So it wasn't a large sum of money that we're taking up, from the city to do that project, luckily. So,
So would it be okay if we were to approach the city council with, instead of 40 seems to be the base, maybe 70,000?
I think precisely is what I'm saying is you can just remind them, last year you approved the CIP, assuming that there'd be 40 in this FY '24 coming up, based on, and then you list all the reasons, we think that number should actually be increased for 70 for FY '24. And because now we know there are additional out years, and then maybe you should increase those out year amounts as well. So that's the argument
Okay.
to make.
okay. And that's my argument when I spoke to Deglin the other day, that hopefully this isn't going to be like a 20-year project, getting these cemeteries back up in shape. And that's why the fundraising is such a crucial part of this, or it will be. And if that's what happens, that's what happens. But my personal goal is not to have it, I would like to see it done in six years, and I think it's doable. I say that without talking to Peter Rice, but so far, when we come with our plans and it's well-researched, realistic prices, we have a shot at it as opposed to getting bits and pieces. Does the city ever, so if we went in and asked for 70,000, and you're talking about total from the 40,000 that they already agreed to, add another 30 to make it 70. Do they ever, I mean, they can outright turn it down, but would they ever say, no, we'll give you only 10,000 more, or to do the doors on the, I mean, they wouldn't be that specific, but
Right.
$10,000 towards an extra project or something?
They have the final say in the adoption
Yeah.
of the CIP. So they can add, they can subtract, they can keep it the same.
Well, we have the evidence too of this damage that was recently done, that was publicized. And I'm thinking, if they know, hey, this is one of the reasons why we need to fix all of this headstones, and this has just happened outside of what we were planning, then we have a reason to say to them, we need this increase. I mean, they can always, we can ask for 70, I thought 80, but we can ask for 70. They may just say, okay, let's just do 65. And your bid will be better off than what you are today. So it's nothing wrong with asking. All they can say is no, or adjust the amount to whatever they feel is they can do. But
Oh, yeah, no, and the other part of that conversation was, in the past, and from all the discussions I've had with, people that were around the 2013, 2016, and all that type of thing, about specifically cemetery, is there a fine line that, we're too greedy or we're too this, or is it fine to shoot for the moon and perception's a big part of it. So that's my question about it. Or do we wait until we're more established and show some of the work we've done to ask to up the ante?
It really is, it.
No, I know you can't give us a definite yes or no.
can you show back one of the pictures of the North Cemetery, one of the first ones,
Yep.
please?
Come on. This way.
All right, one more. Okay. Do you see those areas in the North Cemetery?
That's Cotton.
Yeah, Cotton.
That's
All right,
Cotton.
one
No,
more.
hold on.
Yeah, right there. All right, you see all those areas that look, there's nothing? There used to be headstones in there at one point. There are bodies buried underneath. I know. I mean, I brought people that have the machine that can detect metal, and there is bodies under there. So my thinking is, we have neglected cemeteries like this, and this is probably one of the most neglected and one of the most important for so long, that unless we put a massive effort into saving it, the whole thing is going to look like that area in another 20 or 30 years.
Well,
Like that blank area that had nothing.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that, do we?
So that is the reason why we need the resources now. And I would make the argument that, yeah, we're asking for a lot, but it's because for the last several years, nothing really.
It's been 100 years. It's been 100 years the cemeteries have not been taken care
The
of.
city has neglected this, and now we're looking at being erased altogether.
I understand your point, and others should address this too, is where do you expect the money to come from? That's my point. I mean, do we all feel like it should all come from the city? Because that's going to be a long, long wait.
I think if we fundraise successfully, I think that would show the city that we're serious.
We can, but fundraising requires that you have people that are really good at it through grants, through events, or through participating with other events, joint events. And I'm not sure that we have enough manpower to be able to do that. And it is the responsibility lies with the city 100%, and has for a while. We can fundraise to do additional things, but this is ultimately the responsibility of the city of Portsmouth.
But there is, I'm sorry, Carrie.
No, I agree. I just think that once we have some success, we have projects that look great. I mean, just the clean headstones are amazing. I think there'll be more attention paid. You know, it's easy to ignore something that's been neglected for 100 years.
Yep.
But if we start, I mean, nothing breeds success more than success.
What do you think, Don? You've been quiet. If you don't have a comment, that's fine, but
Well, I don't, because I don't know about I don't know how the city feels about these things in general when these
there,
come up. But I do think that that Carrie has a point about showing our seriousness of purpose would, in our work, would probably lay some good groundwork for another application.
So we actually have 40,000 for this next year, right? And
it's not guaranteed.
So,
because we could spend that so easily and have stuff to show.
I guess maybe I should toss this number out real quick. Just from old numbers of what it would cost is $1 million.
No, we just need some demonstration projects.
Oh, no, absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But my point being, $1 million in old numbers,
It's
that's not coming from the city.
It's a bottomless pit.
Right. The number is not coming from the city. If they've neglected cemeteries for 100 years, I'm with the same philosophy. I think I had stated that before, that we are building up momentum, we're building up our name, and we're getting out in the community. And just last year, within this past year, we got trees cut over at Pleasant Street. It looks 100% better. We have a good chance of starting our program at Point of Graves. We're going to have database and a map on the city and the library site. We're waiting to find out from the grant, and I think we've got a good shot at it. And I'm probably missing a couple, and cleaning over 500 headstones. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. And I'm sorry, but I am passionate about this project. So I think that's a really good base that we're starting off of. And if we continue, if we get the testing done at Point of Graves, and we do the 400 headstones for the 400th. I was going to bring this up. On my own, I have approached this library, and they would do a joint venture with the cemetery committee, and we could have Glenn Knobloch come in the spring and do it as a big presentation as a joint effort from the city, the library, and and we could do fundraising at that, but that's not the point. The point for me is to get us out there, and they're very excited about it. So, and we'll contact Glenn. And then the other project I'm working on with the Athenaeum and the library is the documents program. James from the Athenaeum and I figured out. So I've taken the epitaphs from Louise Tallman's work, and I am putting the names into the Athenaeum, and to see if actual documents come up. I've done about 7 of them, and only 1 out of the 7 did not have actual documents. And the people included in it are doctors, 2 doctors, a merchant, a sea captain, and I forgot what the other 2. I mean, they were everyday people, but there was information. I mean, one of them had a letter, correspondence between them and John Langdon that's on file over there. So I think all these little things to educate the the community, what we have here and who's buried here, not just Langdon and Whipple, is one step further. So I guess that's my 2 cents for right now. Sorry. But I mean, it dovetails with what the both of you saying. We need to get out there and have people appreciate what we have here in the city. So I guess this all started around, who do we expect to pay for it and how soon it's going to happen. I mean, I agree with Suzanne, we can ask to have funds pushed out, but then fundraise really intentionally to help get things done sooner than pushing it out over 10 or 15 years. So doing a little chunk at a time. So
I'm not sure if I missed something. So Suzanne, in order to get the 40,000 for '23, what do we have to do?
So right now, as Peter shared at the last meeting, there's actually 107,000 that is, because things accumulate over time if they aren't spent, in,
Capital?
currently dedicated towards historic cemeteries, but recognizing those monies can move around if there's another emergency need that comes in that balances that out. But right now, there's 107, because that includes what was left from the prior years where monies were unspent, and the 40,000 that was in the budget for FY23. So that's why there's 107 right now. And keep in mind, if you get that Moose Plate grant, there was some matching that would need to be done, and there were some extra costs. And my guess is with the passage of time, there might be a few other extra costs. So I would say, let's hope we get the grant. Then you could kick off and get that piece of work done, and there's money to do it. And, there is, we could talk with Peter if we wanted to move forward for the point of graves and start that work sooner rather than later.
Right.
Then that's something we can talk with Peter about, is whether to pull the pin on that and use the monies that are currently there to do that geotechnical work. So that is a possibility. Now, keep in mind, requests from the cemetery committee, individual requests, are going to get vetted and reviewed by the department that's that it most applies to the request. So that means in most cases it'll be Public Works. So there's going to be an initial looking at these as they all come in from Public Works. And I think that's useful, because when we start to gather all of the needs and all of the requests, whether it's for playground or sidewalk or those other pieces, then it's easier to look and say, okay, we know we have certain, limitations on the budget and all of that kind of stuff, to see the whole piece. And that's really the benefit of a CIP process, because you're looking at all of the needs within the community. Staff will make their recommendations. It'll go through the planning board. So if the recommendation coming out of Public Works, for example, is, let's say, just keep it as it is, 40,000, just for a hypothetical, that still means during those public hearing opportunities, there's what you did, last year, except do it earlier in the process, because now you guys are getting going, and you go and make your case, just as you've been doing. We think, really that 40,000 should be 70,000. And here's why. And we think you ought to build more money into those out years, because we already know there's X, Y, and Z. We'll do our part to keep trying to fundraise or find, sponsors for individual projects. So it's going to be a process, and I think we, from a sort of management perspective, are going to have a better idea once we see the other requests that come in. And we look at the whole slew of needs and that balancing. So,
Is there a standard form for the requests?
yes, there is a form,
Okay.
but it's a pretty simple form, because most people aren't doing quite the same level of intensive thinking and background work that you've been doing. So I actually jumped onto the website, and the CIP form, the PDF version of it is very simple. You know, it's a one-page, what type of project do you have in mind? Because it's really geared up a little more for, you know, I want a new playground type of ask. But it's easy enough. You could, you know, feel free to attach kind of thing at the bottom. And I think really that's what it is. Just, you know, our request is pick your number, and even if it's not a specific project, you can list the types of things. And, you know, the good news is Peter and Corin have been here, so
Yeah.
they understand the nature of the projects that you guys have been talking about, so that as that initial vetting is going through in terms of what they recommend versus, hey, we got this request, we can't, you know, we don't recommend it in the grand scheme of looking at the entirety of the needs of the city, but there was the request, and then it's the conversation.
Yeah, so we're up against a lot lot of people. No, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I just want to
Right,
make
there are
that
other
clear, that
priorities,
we're
yeah.
up against
Competition.
Yep.
Yeah.
a lot of other people request. I just found out that Peter Britz for the Shoreland, he has a Moose Plate grant in too. He's waiting to find out about. So he wants to remap all of the wetlands here in the city zone. So we're even competing against somebody else that we know of here. So, and as far as expertise in fundraising, I don't think you need a lot of expertise. I think you need a plan and people willing to try to carry it out. And so it doesn't have to be people on this committee. We can reach outside people to ask them to do it. And the only reason I say that is because I worked at the Y for 15 years, and I worked at the Y fundraising for the building that's sitting there now. I started there when it was just a bubble. So over a 15-year period, you know, I participated in a lot of fundraising, but I also saw what we had to do to achieve that. So, and a lot of that was done by just people being informed about what we're looking for and willing to take that step to help out because they believed in the cause. So again, I just wanted to share that so you know where I'm coming from looking at the fundraising. Is it fun? No, a lot of people don't like to do it. But-
You have a board of directors there, right? At the
At
Y?
Y, yeah.
And are they expected to give?
No, they weren't when I haven't been there for years, but during this whole process, no, they were not expected to give. They were expected to help fundraise, which they did. A lot of them hosted, you know, events and things like that, but.
So we don't have that luxury of having a board.
But we can find people. I mean, it doesn't have to be someone on this committee. It could be from someone that you know that would be interested in, is interested. I've heard a lot in the last 4 or 5 weeks from talking to different people and from the articles and everything, that people are like, oh, I'm really interested in cemeteries, sort of thing. So they're out there, and I don't mean to preach. I'm trying to
Okay, no.
motivate
That's helpful.
motivate us that we can do it. But and like I said, if you know somebody that might be interested in helping, they can certainly be a part of it. So
I know we're coming to an end pretty soon, so just want to know if we're done with the CIP conversation. I just wanted to ask another question.
well, we can't vote, but I would assume that I'm not assuming. We have a choice, enter it, take a list with the possible estimates and have one of us do a presentation and ask for additional money besides asking a specific $42,000 for point of graves for the testing. Am I reading this correctly?
Yes.
So I know we can't vote on it, but we can each voice our, which approach you think we should take, or,
I think we need to revisit that with Peter Rice. If I interpreted him correctly 2 weeks ago, there's a project scheduled for that whole Mechanic Street intersection for upgrades on the pump station,
Oh,
Right.
that's right.
that at that point in time, this work would be incorporated into that project.
That's right, I
That's-
forgot about that. Thank
and
you.
it's also 15 years out, or 10 years out,
He said, not on his watch.
right? And
Maybe that's why I forgot about it.
I don't see how you're going to get the money to do that specifically if it's going to be done at some point in time on its own with federal funds. That'll be a federally funded project.
I didn't know it was federally funded, and I'm not sure what they're doing other than digging up the road and replacing the power. But my point, I mean,
Well, that's going to be the feedback you're going to get, that's all.
Peter, I spoke to Peter Monday night at the reception for Bob Sullivan right before the meeting, and he was a go for it,
Okay, all right.
For the testing part?
for the testing part.
And if you'd like, I can follow up with him after the meeting and see, you know, given that we, right now, unless something's changed in the last 2 weeks, have the funds that we could proceed with that. I can ask him if that would make sense to do that this year, and then your CIP ask is really everything
For next year.
else, or, you know, some component of that other list. Your next meeting is October 6th, I believe.
I think so.
It's not too far after the deadline.
The next city council meeting is next week?
Yeah, but in terms of the next meeting of the cemetery committee is the
Oh,
6th.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about requesting for the CIP funds. Would that be done at that meeting or at a later meeting?
Later meeting.
Okay.
Right now, the request has been to get a form in, just a simple form that says, please put this, you know, please give this some consideration with as much backup that people may have about what it is they're requesting, because staff is going to review that in October, because our sort of department asks are due, and they'll get wrapped up in it,
Right.
are due mid-October. So there's only like 2 weeks between the citizen requests coming in and staff needing to look at them, decide whether they're going to incorporate them in to our asks. So in the ideal world, it would be nice, even if there was just a consensus of, giving Susan authority to fill out the form and making an ask.
Right.
And because that way it gets in the hopper, even if it gets matured
Yeah,
know,
because going forward.
as we get closer to the public hearings.
Right. Yeah, because going forward at the public hearing, we can add anything we want to that, right?
Right.
So, I mean, get our place in the queue, as they say.
That's my thinking. It becomes at least a placeholder in there that there's going to be an ask, and the scale of the ask would be helpful so that Peter can begin to think of, okay, well, how does that fit with the other asks? You know, because like I said, the value is he and Corin have been here and
Yeah.
kind of see, the effort that this committee has been making. So.
Yeah, so, Sue, I mean,
Yeah, the point that I was going to make, it's outside of this conversation, but I think that I would like to explore a way that we can be trained on fixing graves, on fixing those headstones ourselves. If it's a matter of just learning how to apply epoxy, the techniques, maybe some of the brackets on the side, because there are just too many that are damaged now. And so we need to learn ourselves and get really good at it so we can do it.
Who was the fellow that started us off at the North Cemetery?
John Lord, he's going to be down tomorrow at your cemetery, so I'm going to
Oh, okay.
meet him tomorrow.
What time?
He's hoping to get down there at 8:30, 9 o'clock.
So he's going to be doing some epoxy repair, cleaning, and standing up of fallen stones.
Tomorrow?
Yep, tomorrow.
What time, 10?
Well, no, he said he'd be down there about 8:30. I mean, anybody can come down and see how he does it. He'll come down and give us a formal training anytime.
I think a formal training of people that are interested in doing that particular task may be appropriate. I'm just like, there are just so many now, and with the 11 that got damaged recently, it's like,
How about the person that did St. John?
Oh, he's too old.
I can't see.
I can say it, and I did say it because he retired. I've seen him a couple times, and he's mentioned that.
Very meticulous. He did a fabulous job.
Yeah,
well,
Yes, he did.
You can still retire and train us doing a video.
So
No,
I'm concerned because, I mean, I don't have a lot of physical strength, and are you picturing us picking up headstone?
I'm picturing some of us who may be adept to be able to do it,
Yeah.
doing it.
I think-
Not
I think
lifting
we're pretty
graves,
limited.
but many of the ones that I've seen, it's a matter of just epoxying them back together and putting brackets so that we'll be safe,
If-
you know.
if you guys can, I've got the broken headstones, Suzanne. If you can, to show you what kind of work we're talking about, Carrie.
Okay, it's in a different one, right?
It's the other presentation, yeah. Eva, what do you think about all this? Yeah, go
You
ahead.
know, I've been
That's-
following
that'll work.
along pretty carefully, and, well, first I find it overwhelming, and, secondly,
Oh,
I've thought
I
a
lost
lot
it.
about fundraising and what we would be able to accomplish with
Back.
that, but we're not even going to get to that today.
No.
But,
Oh, it's going to fix it for me.
I don't know, I just,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think the fact that it has nothing has been allocated for so long is to us that's a very worthy argument. That I'm sorry for the way I sound. I have a sinus infection. It makes sense to us, but I don't know, and maybe Suzanne would know better, if that's what really works when you're, looking for funding. Is that let's hit them over the head approach. Do people that run our city and prepare our budgets look at that? Is that persuasive to them? Or is it more persuasive to take the other approach that was offered about showing what we've done and I just don't know enough about how the city works and the people involved who are making those decisions. And I think maybe some of you there know better than I do.
Maybe there's nothing else in here.
Wait,
So-
I'll use the arrow keys to.
Oh,
What
sorry.
happened to
That's all right.
Eva's?
Oh, she's right there.
Is she still
Okay,
talking?
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Still there.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's the arrow keys.
yeah. I think,
Ones. Oh, I use those ones before. Okay.
Eva, I think that's the hard point about all of this is none of us are familiar, and it's a 50-50. If you go one way or go the other. So perhaps, at least getting us in the queue for the process, we have more time to sit down as a group and talk about exactly how much by the time it comes to ask for money, how much we should ask for. Okay.
That, for sure.
Okay. All right, so can you see these slides?
Yes.
Okay. He said use arrows. What arrows is he talking?
I used these ones.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm going to learn this. This tree, 2 weeks ago, you can't see it here, but right down the middle of the whole tree split, and Corin's team was right out there. I just happened to be there. I texted him, and they were there the next day, and they took down this whole side branch, and it was hollow inside, so it was a good thing.
What is this?
This is at North Cemetery. So, and they were right there. So, and they've done a good job all summer. This is one of the broken headstones at North. They rebroke a stone that had been fixed with epoxy before. This didn't have any epoxy on either side, and it looks like they tried to get it out of the ground just for something to do. That, again, was epoxied who knows how long ago, and they just came along and zapped it. It looks like that's been there a long time.
It has been.
We picked it up on the side, and there's no, I mean, how much does that weigh when it just went in? There's no dirt and stuff around the edge of it. So, I mean, I would assume it would make a dent when it fell that night. But anyway, that was just my theory. So, but it's broken, and it's an epoxy one. So, this got broken off and put over there. This was a doozy. They tried to dig it out, broke it off up at the top, and then somebody might have come along afterwards and tried to stand it up with a stick. So,
This is the vandalism you said took place recently?
yep. Yeah, we just cleaned this stone this summer. So, same way, this was a very clean break. Don't even know if those two pieces go to that. There are pieces of headstones strewn around, even before, looking into this.
Did the police patrol these cemeteries at all?
No. Is that, oh, maybe that is my final one. I thought I had loaded more. But,
We talked
yeah,
about that. Yeah.
yep, so those are, it's not all 14, but it's the type of, and this one was actually dug right out of the ground. It's a small one at the top. So, yeah, I mean, we have so much going.
I know you have already talked about it, but
Yeah, we could
we're
research
going
it.
to put them up on our building because there's been a lot of vandalism, right? And I'm like right next to the cemetery.
Right.
And there, you hear the noises of people partying, and it's changed. I've only been here like 5 years, and it's just getting to be more and more of that kind of activity.
That's what Chris was saying too, because he lives over by you, that it's really changed.
Yeah, you see graffiti on buildings, and
Yeah.
we have a security company coming to put up cameras on our building.
I mean, that's certainly something we can look into, put it on the long list.
I don't have any projects, but
I'll also reach out to the PD and to Public Works, because we do have, like cameras down at, there are some cameras in the Prescott Park area, particularly during festivals.
right, yeah. I mean, it takes a lot infrastructure. You have to have Wi-Fi.
Depends where it is, but the technology is actually getting,
A lot
much cheaper.
yeah.
So what would have been very burdensome to do,
Right.
it's just challenging, but, we've,
Yeah.
there've
Is
been
this-
live streams on, Market Square, it's a public area.
Hey, can we do that? We can focus Google whatever and just cover the whole cemetery, just live stream it all the time.
Do you know what the word Shonda means?
No.
It's a Shonda. It's a disgrace, what happened here. I mean, I don't, I know you know that, but
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
shocking.
Yeah.
It's Yiddish for disgrace.
It is, and it is truthful that these cemeteries have not been taken care of for over 100 years. Things that have been done have just been quick fixes with whatever was available or whatever the method was at that point in time. Like down at Pointed Graves, the lime covering was the big thing back in the 30s and 40s, I think. putting a skim coat of lime plaster over everything.
Over it, yeah.
So, you're dealing with that. I mean, it's not that they absolutely, and Michael will attest that there were, not until what, the 50s or 60s, they didn't mow cemeteries, right? Was it that late?
Yeah.
They let the grass grow and cut it once a year.
Limited maintenance, limited.
I mean, some of the small damage, a couple of people can just work in it, put brackets on it. It's not like you're talking about huge monuments. It's just, a smaller headstone. So if we can train a group of people who are willing and capable of doing it,
Well, we
some
can
of the
cer-
newer techniques, how to be able to do it, we probably have better quality epoxy now that they did 40 years ago. So maybe we can start making some headway, because they just, more and more every year, I've seen it for the last 10 or 15 years that I've been involved, walking through the cemetery. Every year I go in, there's one or two more that are gone, one or two more that are broken. And it's like, to be able to just go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to fix it today, instead of just letting it just.
But that's
around.
certainly, so that's a project we can work on. How late do you think, Michael, in the season? Epoxy can't be applied too late into this time of year, right?
Yeah, the substrate temperature has to be at least 40 degrees and rising. So you've only got another 2 months that you could possibly do that.
Oh, you think so? Because I was going to say, I mean, that's certainly a project we can look into getting training done on from various people, including you.
Cognizant of the time.
Yes.
And the fact that I do think if you could get even a basic placeholder in by the
Yeah.
30th, I know Public Works would appreciate it. I just don't, you guys have done so much work. I want to make sure it's captured, and I'm willing to, work with you to
Right.
make sure you know where the form is, and attachments are fine. And I can check with Peter. If
Yes,
Peter is
please.
thinking that we should do the geotech on the point of graves, then you don't even need to do that one. Then do a single form, kind of list some of this stuff, and
Right, because he may even be able to save us some money, as he implied, to roll it into something else. But the sun's out, everybody, so let's vote.
On that side of the building, I'm sure.
So, the consensus is to go ahead and get our place in the queue for CIP. And then we will continue to work on what we want and try to get more prices and come to grips with all of this.
Are you going to be able to do that?
Yeah.
Are you
So-
going to be able to
Oh.
do that?
Yeah, I can. Yes, I can. Would you like to do it?
No. I just want to make sure someone is doing it.
Oh, no. I will do it. Yes.
And I think what you could do is you could then, if you complete the form that you get in September 30th, you can bring it to the next committee meeting, because like I said, it's
Right.
early in the month, and if we get a
all the
quorum,
ones that
the
did last
quorum
year.
could ratify it
What,
and,
Jubilees?
have a
Right.
proper vote saying, yep, she did what we had hoped she would do.
What kind of cement do you use? You use
just
the
a
same
nice
stuff
tie a
that
bow on that one.
this guy's going to
Or
bring
provide
tomorrow.
input and say, hey, could
I
you
won't
see
be
if you
able to
could
be there
adjust the
tomorrow either,
form,
though.
because we'd like to do that. So
I
Just get us in
have to
the-
pick up
Right.
someone around
Yeah.
10:30, 11 o'clock.
could you
so
send me that
probably
list?
will go in there for maybe an
Can we
hour.
have a piece of paper that
Just
lists
some of the ones.
costs
that I've
to the
done.
extent that we know them, and the projects that we've been talking about?
Right, Susan,
Have
A
that?
fair amount of work.
I think it'll be in the minutes, right?
Have we actually generated that for this?
I've done about
No,
6.
nothing was generated for this. We're just working off of the old prices in there. But
So it's a variety
when
of different techniques and
I
products.
submit prices for the CIP, I will copy everybody so they will know what kind of funds we're talking about.
Do we have to approve that?
That's what she was saying, so
You have to vote on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
we
just
can
a
vote on
starting
it, though.
point, it's not written in stone, so we get that information
No.
in. This is what our estimate is at this point in time, and then we can discuss it afterwards and we can change it. It's not
Oh.
like the final proposal or anything like that. It's just a work in progress, point to start at.
Would we
So-
have it at the next meeting, or?
Yep.
That would be the goal. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
So is the meeting closed? Concluded?
You have to.
To the extent it wasn't a formal meeting at all, because you didn't have a quorum, well, we'll have to decide whether we, if we keep having trouble having.